Hey everybody, we're getting close to the end of our mix here. So I wanted to just, sort of put some of the finishing touches on it here. Today's video is all about adding some reverbs through some send effects with an auxiliary input. So, a couple of complicated routing issues. Nothing that you can't wrap your head around, but you really got to kind of follow along with this one if this is the first time that you're going through some of this stuff, because we have to change some inputs and outputs about things. But basically what we want to do, since we have a moderately sized Pro Tools session here, with several different elements now, we've duplicated some things, so our session is growing. The number of tracks that we have is growing. Instead of throwing a reverb effect on an insert slot on every single one of these things to make it, to give it some flavor as if it's coming from a specific acoustic space as opposed to a soundproof recording studio like we've got, what we can do is set up an auxiliary input similar to how we did our parallel drums channel, but use that just to house our reverb and then send every single one of these audio files to the reverb, and then just decide how much reverb we want to add to those particular audio tracks. And that's going to save us a lot of CPU power, because reverb is one of those things that runs through a whole bunch of these mathematical algorithms in real time, and it can really bog down your computer, especially now that we're working on laptops at home and stuff like that with this remote learning. So this is really going to be to our benefit. So the way that we accomplish this is to create a new track, and in this case we're going to do a stereo aux input, because even if we have mono audio sources that are going to be sent here, we want the reverb that comes back to be affected in stereo space. So even though a guitar track might be panned hard to the right, when it bounces around in acoustic space, you would hear those reflections on both your left and right ears. So we want to emulate that. So creating an auxiliary input, and it's just going to put it's going to insert itself wherever you had your last track sort of selected. So I'm going to move this to the other side of my master fader just to sort of wrap my head around where it's at, and rename this reverb. Alright, the first thing that I like to do is, before I forget, this reverb aux input is where I'm actually going to insert the reverb. So I'm going to do that. Deverb is a nice reverb plugin that comes with your standard Pro Tools license. I usually go with a plate reverb. You can choose like the size, medium or large, and then you can see what it affects, the decay time and stuff like that. We want to make sure that it's 100% wet is really what's up, and then under factory presets or whatever, you can choose something here if you like. But you might spend a little bit of time trying out different ones just to hear how it sounds. Now there's this silly analogy that I come up with when trying to decide how to route all this stuff. What we really want to do is, I want you to picture that we're sending audio from all of these different audio tracks literally on a bus, a yellow school bus. Okay, we're going to send audio on a bus to pick up some reverb and bring it back to whatever instrument it belongs to. So when I do that, I'm clicking on the send, in this case on the lead vocals, and I'm going to send things to a bus. We're already using bus 1 and 2 for our drums, parallel drums tracks. It's highlighted yellow to show us that it's in use. So I could choose bus 3 and 4. But in this case, I want this to apply to all my different tracks here, every single one of them. So if that's going to be the case, then what I want to do is hold Option when I do this, and then select bus 3, 4, and that's going to insert them all the way across the board. And when you do that, you see that the bus 3, 4 under sends here that I have highlighted, I get this little fader, and this is just like when we're routing audio to the headphones, when we're doing a live thing in the studio. So this is going to determine how much of this audio signal I'm sending now to the reverb. But we have to set up a few other things first. And we also want to make sure since we applied this to every single audio track, that there's none that we don't necessarily want it actually. So I usually don't send the bass to reverb. Seems to just sort of muddy up the mix a whole bunch if you're sending all these low frequency sounds and bouncing them around in this space. So I'm going to remove it from that, and I'm also going to remove it from the backing tracks. And I also don't want to be sending myself, so this reverb track, I'm going to remove it from there too. Alright. And I think my parallel drum channel, if I'm going to add reverb to the originals, then those are going to wind up going over here, so I'm going to remove that as well. Okay, so got the reverb send set up where I want, but I have to now set up my reverb auxiliary input to receive the buses that I'm sending over. So if I'm sending all of these audio tracks on bus 3-4, that yellow school bus or whatever, then I need my input to match that. So bus 3-4. See, so I'm changing my input to match. And let's hear exactly what happens with that. Let's find a section of the song. Command equals to go back to the edit screen. Let's find, the chorus here where the vocals are singing for a little bit and solo those out. And what I want to show you, now I'm going to click on the bus 3-4 send for the lead vocal channel, and I'm going to adjust this fader, and you have to have both the track that you want soloed, and you have to have the reverb soloed, otherwise you won't hear it. So I'm going to press play, and we're going to hear the dry vocals, and I'm slowly going to start adding in reverb until we really hear it.
There's nothing to say that hasn't been said, nothing to do.
Hear the difference there?
We never did. This is our fight. There's nothing.
It adds a whole bunch of character. Now I know that this isn't perfect because we have all this bleed from the drums and the guitar and stuff like that. But basically what we can do now is go through each one of these buses, the sends, and then affect how much reverb do we want to sprinkle into each one of these audio elements. But there's one additional thing that I wanted to show you that will make this a whole lot easier than having to go through and sort of prioritizing each one of these buses or whatever, and then looking at the new fader over here. Instead of doing that, what I might want to do is let's see, go to view and expanded sends. In this case, everything that I've got here is on send A. So when I click this, what happens? Get this nice little fader for each one of these things. So my bus 3-4 now has an individual fader on every single channel. So I can just, let's say that I want to hear all the different vocals right now, and then add some reverb to each of them. So I'm going to listen.
There's nothing to say that hasn't been said, nothing to do that we never did. This is our fight, there's nothing left. What is this fight supposed to prove? I'm falling off a cliff.
Alright, let's hear what it sounds like without the reverb. And with?
That hasn't been said, nothing to do that we never did.
Alright, so that makes a big difference, and you can hear that decay time when I let go. And what you might find is once you start to dial these things in, you might want to change the decay time. You might want that to be a little bit of a bigger reverb or something. Let's put it away at like 2.5 seconds and hear how it sounds.
There's nothing to say that hasn't been said, nothing.
So that just takes that, that time that it takes to fade away, to stop bouncing around this fake acoustic space that we've created. We just sort of expanded that a little bit. So what you're going to want to do is start going through again each instrument section, sort of just like we did in the mixing process when we were balancing the volume and the pan, and start adding in some of this reverb flavor to it. And it's real nice because now all the instruments are going to sound like they share the same sort of reverb from the same acoustic space, which can be really cool. You can take this to the next level and make multiple different reverb sends, and say make the drums go to one of them so they have a specific reverb, and the vocals have another one that makes them sound a little bit closer. So you can do all sorts of, you can go pretty deep with that kind of stuff. But experiment around with this. Make sure you familiarize yourself with routing those auxiliary inputs, and making some adjustments to these send levels, and really making sure that you understand how you can display those things by the expanded sends, because that's going to help you out tremendously as you move forward and do more of this mixing stuff as your career progresses. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions. Just a couple more videos on like some mastering stuff and then bouncing this out, and we'll move on. Cool, thanks for watching, guys.